Canada's Prime Minister stepped up to the podium today and dismantled America's four-year strategy in just 40 minutes. Here are those historic moments.
Canada made a historic move against America today. We won't ask for your permission anymore, he said. But how is this even possible?
Breaking tonight, a Canadian Prime Minister just did something unprecedented. Mark Carney didn't just announce policy. He predicted the end of an era. And the target, Donald Trump's entire approach to North American dominance. This wasn't diplomatic courtesy. This wasn't careful negotiation. This was a Prime Minister standing in front of cameras and declaring that the game Trump's been playing, the chaos strategy, the tariff threats, the America First bullying, it's over. Not because America is weak, but because Canada just stopped playing. Everyone believed Trump's unpredictability gave him leverage. Political analysts assumed chaos was strategy. Washington insiders thought Trump's tariff threats would keep Canada compliant. They were all utterly incorrect. Because what happened in that press conference room today will be studied for decades. Not as economics, not as policy. As the moment a smaller nation looked at the world's most powerful country and said, "We don't need you anymore." And the most shocking part, Carney has the numbers to prove it. Let me show you exactly what happened and why Mark Carney just wrote the playbook for defeating Trumpism without firing a single shot. Ottawa today. Standing at the podium, Mark Carney delivered what he called a budget announcement, but within minutes, it became clear this was something far more significant, a declaration of economic independence. The kind of moment that doesn't just shift policy, it shifts power. Carney opened with a line that seemed innocuous. "It's official," he said, but the way he said it, calm, measured, absolute, sent a message. What began as quiet policy shifts has now become a full-blown transformation. And then he said the words that changed everything. Canada's future is no longer tied to Washington's decisions. The room went silent. Because Canadian prime ministers don't say that. They hint at it. They dance around it. They use diplomatic language that means nothing and offends no one. But Carney? He just drew a line in the sand and dared Washington to respond. For months, he'd been warning about it. Every tariff threat from Trump, every unpredictable trade policy, every morning tweet that sent markets spiraling, Carney had been building a case, brick by brick, that Canada's dependency on America wasn't a relationship anymore. It was a risk. And today that era ended. Here's what Trump's team didn't see coming. While Washington was playing chess with tariffs, Carney was building an entirely different board. He wasn't trying to win Trump's game. He was making Trump's game irrelevant. The centerpiece? Build Canada homes. But this isn't just housing policy. This is economic warfare disguised as construction. Carney explained it with precision. A new federal entity that leverages public lands, massive project portfolios, and competitive financing to create a factory-built housing industry. The numbers are staggering. Cut building times by 50%, reduce costs by 20%, lower emissions by another 20%. But here's what the numbers don't tell you. This isn't about building houses. It's about building an economic ecosystem that doesn't need American materials, American financing, or American approval. For decades, Canada waited for investment to trickle down from the United States, waited for trade deals, waited for permission. Carney just announced Canada's done waiting. He framed it in historical terms, and this is where his brilliance shows. Our history is one of adventurers, risk-takers, and above all, builders, Carney said. Our country was forged by indigenous peoples and voyagers who built vast trading networks from coast to coast to coast before the Americans had even left St. Louis. Read that again. Before the Americans had even left St. Louis. That's not policy language. Think about what he just said. Indigenous peoples and voyagers built coast-to-coast trade networks before Americans had even left St. Louis. That's not a history lesson. That's Carney reminding everyone that Canada was here first. Built first, thrived first. And if we did it once without America, we can damn well do it again. Trump sells nationalism through division. Carney just sold patriotism through history. Then came the announcement that made economists sit up straight. The Buy Canadian policy. And this isn't a slogan. This is a fundamental restructuring of federal spending. Every dollar the federal government spends, every department, every crown corporation, every major infrastructure project will now prioritize Canadian suppliers by default, not as a preference, as the default. Infrastructure, Canadian materials, rail projects, Canadian steel, housing initiatives, Canadian manufacturing, defense investments, Canadian companies first. Carney listed them methodically. Build Canada Homes, Alto, high-speed rail, the new Defense Investment Agency. All of it, every contract, every supplier agreement, will flow through Canadian hands first. For decades, American companies dominated Canadian supply chains. They weren't partners, they were the pipeline. And Carney just shut off the valve. Here's what this actually means. Trump's tariff threats, suddenly meaningless. Because if Canada's not buying American materials anyway, threatening tariffs is like threatening to stop something that's already stopped. Trump's leverage just evaporated. And Carney did it with a smile in a press conference. But then Carney went further. He gave Canada a choice, and the way he framed it revealed everything about his strategy. There are two potential responses to the challenges we face, Carney said. The first is to stick to plans designed for the old world, hunker down, slash the deficit, and wait for the trickle down. He paused. Let that image sink in. Waiting, hoping, dependent. But to do that would mean getting rid of our key social programs. It would mean the federal government eliminating all health, education, and social transfers to provinces and territories, and at the same time, not making the big investments we desperately need right now. Another pause. The alternative is clear and it's bleak. We choose a different path, Carney declared. We choose to invest boldly in our future. Just as Canadians have done in the past, we choose Canada. 3 words. We choose Canada. It sounds simple, but think about what he just did. He took every argument Trump makes, America first, economic nationalism, prioritizing domestic interests, and he made it Canadian. But unlike Trump's version, which is built on resentment and isolation, Carney's version is built on capability and confidence. Trump says America first because he thinks everyone else is cheating. Carney says Canada first because Canada can actually deliver. That's the difference. And that difference just became policy. Then came the question that revealed Carney's true mastery. A journalist asked about New Brunswick's forestry sector. 49 firms, $2 billion in exports, almost all to the United States. And Trump's administration is trying to shut Canadian forestry products out. It was a perfect setup for panic. What about industries that depend on American markets? What about sectors that can't pivot overnight? Carney didn't flinch. He acknowledged reality. 75% of New Brunswick forestry exports go to the United States. The U.S. is trying to shut them out. Those are facts. And then he delivered the response that shows why he's playing a different game entirely. We can do several things, Carney said. 1, yes, buy Canadian and build more at home. 2, diversify internationally. 3, expand what we do with forest products. 3 options. 3 paths forward. None of them involve begging Washington for access. But then he added the line that changes everything. And of course, all of that is in parallel with negotiating with the Americans and trying to get a good deal for the forestry sector. In which case, we're doing other things or we're prepared to do other things that the Americans want in order for the forest product sector to get greater access. Do you see what he just did? He turned negotiation into leverage. Trump thinks tariffs are leverage. Carney just showed that self-sufficiency is leverage because Canada's not negotiating from need anymore. It's negotiating from choice. If America wants something from Canada, which it absolutely does, then America needs to give Canadian forestry better access, not as a favor, as a trade. That's how you negotiate with Trump, not by appealing to fairness or partnership, by having options he doesn't have. And then Carney said the line that's already going viral, the line that summarizes his entire strategy in one sentence. If I can bring it back to where I started, this is not too strong a word, this is a radically different U.S. trade policy than anything we've seen in our lifetimes. It's radically different. They've changed the rules, or their interpretation of the rules, and that's what we're dealing with? Radically different. He said it twice, for emphasis, because he wants everyone to understand that the old playbook, the NAFTA era, the careful diplomacy, the shared prosperity framework, it's gone. Trump killed it. Carney's just responding to the world Trump created. And that's why we need to move fast, Carney continued. That's why this budget is the right budget. That's why we're looking to have $1 trillion of investment. $1 trillion. That's not a budget. That's a declaration of capability. Carney listed where it's going: housing, infrastructure, clean energy, artificial intelligence, national manufacturing, every sector designed to make Canada economically unshakable. And here's the key. So yes, we have as many jobs as possible in forestry, but we have many more jobs being created elsewhere in New Brunswick and elsewhere across Canada. Translation, we're not going to fight Trump for table scraps. We're going to build a table so big we don't need his scraps. That's not policy. That's strategy. Long-term, structural, irreversible strategy. And then Carney delivered the knockout line, the one that will define his entire approach. At its core, these are all things we don't have to ask permission for. We control them. We decide. It's our future. We're taking it. We're moving forward. He didn't shout it. He didn't pound the podium. He just stated it as fact, with the calm confidence of someone who's already won. And then, Carney said with something close to satisfaction, we spend less time in press conferences, in business suites, around kitchen tables, talking about what the Americans are doing and might do, and just focus on what we're doing to build this great country. Less time talking about Trump, more time building Canada. That's the prediction. That's the end of Trump he's forecasting. Not Trump's presidency, not Trump's political career, but Trump's relevance to Canada's future. Because here's what Carney understands that Trump doesn't. Power isn't about forcing others to need you. Power is about not needing them. Trump built his entire strategy on making countries dependent and then threatening to cut them off. It worked when countries had no alternatives. But Carney just built the alternative. Housing that doesn't need American investment. Manufacturing that doesn't need American materials. Infrastructure that doesn't need American approval. Trade networks that don't need American markets. Trump's strategy requires dependency. Carney just eliminated the dependency. And once you're not dependent, the threats are just noise. The journalists in the room understood what they were witnessing. This wasn't a budget announcement. This was a prime minister looking at the most powerful country on earth and saying, "You don't control us anymore." For decades, Canada defined its power through proximity to America. Close ally, reliable partner, integrated economies, shared prosperity. Carney just redefined Canadian power as independence, as self-sufficiency, as the ability to thrive regardless of what happens in Washington, and the timing is devastating. Because Trump's trade policy, the chaos, the unpredictability, the tariff threats, was supposed to keep allies in line. Instead, it gave Carney the perfect justification to do exactly what he's doing. Trump created the problem, Carney built the solution, and now Trump has no leverage to stop it. Build Canada homes? Buy Canadian policies? $1 trillion investment plans. These aren't temporary measures. These are structural changes that will outlast any administration, Canadian or American. Trump might win another term. He might lose. It doesn't matter, because the Canada that Carney's building doesn't depend on who's sitting in the Oval Office. That's the prediction. That's the end Carney's forecasting. The end of Trump's ability to shape Canada's future through chaos and threats. And you know what the most brilliant part is? Carney never attacked Trump personally, never criticized him by name, never made it about personality or politics. He just built an economy that makes Trump irrelevant and announced it with a smile. In one press conference, Mark Carney didn't just outline a budget. He redefined what leverage means in the Trump era. And the answer is simple. Leverage belongs to whoever needs the other side least. Trump needs leverage over Canada. Carney just proved Canada doesn't need Trump. Stay with us. We're going to be following every move Carney makes, every response from Washington, every shift in this new reality. Because this story, it's just beginning. This is Canada Next, and you're watching history unfold in real time.